there was a meeting recently geared toward Christian lawmakers because they only represent like 99% of elected officials. And they met at Liberty University, Jerry Falwell's old haunts. And basically, they were gathering to share best practices and all that. Like, hey, I'm a Christian lawmaker in Louisiana, and I passed this bill, and now all of you should pass this bill in your states. And they videotaped this, like it's up there for people to see. And one of the things they were talking about one of their biggest success stories over the past year, which is trying to get Christian chaplains into public schools. And some states have many states have proposed it. 3 states have actually passed this into law, and many more states are probably going to work out the kinks, and they're going to do it in the year ahead. And what was interesting is that there was one panel of the so-called experts when it comes to chaplains in schools. And one of the things they were talking about is how do you overcome the obstacles with bills trying to get chaplains in schools? And one panelist basically said, we got a lot of pushback from Satanists. They said, if you pass this law, we're going to get satanic chaplains into public schools. And I'm going to show you what he said in a second. But all of it just confirmed the idea that these people are not interested in helping kids. They're not interested in religious pluralism or religious freedom. They are only interested in Christian supremacy. Okay? That's what the bottom line is. And if you're not aware, just to give you a quick recap, getting chaplains in schools has been the latest and most effective attempt to shove religion into public schools for the past year. 14 states have proposed or passed legislation to give permission to public schools to bring chaplains onto their staff. And supporters of these laws say it's a way to address staffing shortages and improve mental health. The opponents, the correct people, they say, no, students deserve qualified experts, not randos with questionable credentials who clearly want to proselytize. Like, if you want to help kids, hire more social workers, hire more counselors, get mental health experts. Don't get Baptist chaplains from across the street. Who cares what their credentials are? And some Republicans have openly said this is all about representing God's presence within our public schools. That was the Texas state senator who proposed that state's bill and got it passed. And while the language of all these bills vary from state to state, which is why they were discussing it at this meeting, some of them would allow schools to bring in local pastors who have no formal certification to work with kids while dismissing trained professionals. Like, you could replace the qualified people with unqualified chaplains. Like, that's what happened in Texas. That's a disaster. Even in Texas, like more than 100 chaplains, religious chaplains, signed a letter urging state school boards, don't do it. We know you have permission now. Don't do it. Don't bring us on. It's a bad idea. They're really warning these people it's a horrible plan. But then the question emerges, if some of these states, like Texas, are allowing chaplains in schools, are they going to allow a Muslim chaplain? What about a humanist chaplain? A satanic chaplain? Because guess what? They all exist. And what would these chaplains that they do bring on, what are they going to say to LGBTQ students who are struggling with their sexual orientation or gender identity? So these are fair questions that are, if they bring on Christian chaplains in their school districts and we see what happens and they're preaching and they're telling kids not to be gay or whatever, like, you're going to see lawsuits. And the reason a lot of school districts are iffy, even if they have permission to bring in chaplains, the reason they haven't really jumped on this yet is because they know they would be inviting more lawsuits in the future, whereas right now they don't need to deal with that. So this is kind of the issue we're talking about here. Now, the one organization that's been really pushing for this is called the National School Chaplain Association. It's a Christian ministry. It's a lobbying group, the National School Chaplain Association. What do they say? NSCA is a Christian chaplain ministry that provides spiritual care, counseling, and support to everybody, right? You can help them, right. Statement of faith. Got to have a statement of faith because it's all about Christians. And the last thing I want to show you here, look at this. How many people are served by their chaplains? 27 million. How many schools have implemented this? 30,000 plus. I don't believe that number. I think that's just the number of schools that exist in the states where these chaplaincy bills have been legalized. I think that's where that number is coming from. But the other thing I want to show you, they mentioned their board of directors. All right. First of all, that guy on the far left, Rocky Malloy, go look up his profile when you get a chance on Wikipedia. You'll have a wild day with it. But I don't want to talk about him. He's not the important one. The name you got to remember in this batch is this lady in the middle, Julie Pickren. I'll bring her up in a second, but she's on the board of the NSCA. So that's the first name I want to show you. By the way, Rocky Malloy, the head of that organization, he said, I'm not worried about satanic chaplains because they don't count. He said that in an interview like a couple of months ago, and it was a dumb thing to say then. But just FYI, which states have passed these bills for chaplains in schools? Texas, Florida, Louisiana. Okay. So they were having this panel discussion. Where was this taking place? It was taking place at a meeting of the National Association of Christian Lawmakers. That was the group sponsoring this. If you remember the name Jason Rapert, he was the Arkansas legislator, Christian nationalist, the guy who put a 10 Commandments monument outside the state capitol. He ran for lieutenant governor with Sarah Huckabee Sanders on separate tickets, but they ran. And then he lost in the primary, and now he's out of politics. So now he runs this group, the National Association of Christian Lawmakers, NACL, SALT, because they're salt of the earth, get it? And this is their national policy conference. And on this panel, I'm going to show you in a second, there were three people. One of them was Julie Pickren, the lady I just showed you. She's on the board of the National School Chaplain Association. She's also on the Texas Board of Education. There's another guy I need to show you. It's this dude right here, Louisiana State Senator Mark Abraham. He was also there. And the third guy that I need to show you is this dude right here. That right there is Jim Schmidt. He is the legislative ambassador and executive team member for the National School Chaplain Association. So those three people were all talking about this. I'm going to show you the clip. Just listen to what they say about like overcoming obstacles for these chaplaincy bills.
But the left side will make innuendos. Well, now we're going to have Satanists as chaplains. First, Satanic is not a church, it's not a religion, it's anti-God. So you just say, okay, and move on to the next one. Because I don't know any of you that would hire a Satanist, so you just look at their background and don't hire them. I mean, I don't know people in their engineering firm or teachers or baseball coaches that have an outright Satanist and say, oh yeah, well, we'll hire you. So it's not an argument, it's a narrative.
The only other comment, one of the oppositions, well, anybody can be a chaplain then. I mean, a Muslim can come in and be a chaplain. And we just said, no, it has to be a certified chaplain. So that's how we kind of got around that.
Yeah, thank you, Florida, for saying yes to it. And it was the NACL that really helped move it forward. And Ron DeSantis, upon signing it, says Satanists don't even apply. That's what he said to the media.
If you look at the Department of Defense list of approved chaplains for the DoD, there's not any Satanists. They're not there. They're not, according to the Supreme Court, they are not an organized religion. So it's a lot of fear-mongering among the narrative.
There are crazy people. We had the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster and a minister from the Church of Satan actually showed up and told all my school board members that in fact that they were going to apply to be a chaplain and all this kind of stuff. But I think there's actually, what I was told is that there actually are appeals court at the federal level precedents out there that basically make it clear that the Church of Satan is not a legitimate religious faith and is not entitled to protection as Christianity would be.
Can you imagine these people just like, they're saying it out loud. And when the lawsuits come, and they will inevitably come, it's like, yeah, they are very clearly saying, you guys, it's just for Christians. None of these other groups really count. And we've designed our laws to make sure we're excluding them. Like, they're literally giving away the game, right? But there's a lot of ignorance in the stuff they said. And maybe it's a given since they've never read a second book in their life. But for what it's worth, let me show you a couple things here. First of all, Satanism, the Satanic Temple, these are not, they said, they're not real organizations. They're not, the Supreme Court says they're not a religion. Guess what? The Satanic Temple, the IRS has designated it a tax-exempt church. So they qualify as a church, which means they're qualified to set their own rules when it comes to chaplains. Okay. There's that. There are also famously, you could look this up, humanist chaplains. There are groups that will certify you as a humanist chaplain. You can become a non-theistic chaplain as well. So that's a thing. What about the argument that like the Department of Defense says Satanism isn't a religion? Well, guess what? I have a spreadsheet here from the military where this is from, I think, 2022, where they listed, we updated our list of religions, and look at what's on this list. Because they retroactively said, going back to 2017, we're going to allow these religions. But look at some of the things they added to the list here. Pagan, humanist. These were not on the list like 10 years ago, but they said, yeah, we're going to start including this. Some of these have been on there for a while. What else did they have on? Oh, there we go. Wicca, magic, spiritualist, atheist, agnostic, no preference. Like, even if Satanism isn't on that list, there are plenty of places Satanists could go, even if they're in the military and they need a category. So there's also that. So if groups representing non-theistic people want to bestow the title of chaplain on anybody, they're good to go. The laws give them the ability to do so based on their own standards. You know who agrees with me? The Republican who sponsored this law in Florida. Here's what she said at the time. Florida State Senator Erin Grell, a Republican who represents Vero Beach, blah, blah, blah. She said she is concerned about the potential of satanic priests taking advantage of the legislation she sponsored. But I think as soon as we get in the middle of defining what is religion and what is not, and whether or not someone can be available and be on a list, we start to run up to constitutional problems. Like, yeah. So when Ron DeSantis signs that bill into law and says, well, it doesn't matter, Satanism isn't a religion or whatever, like, he's literally undercutting what his own Republican Party said and making it worse down the line. The reason there's no lawsuit in Florida yet is because their law doesn't go into effect until July 1st. And I think what you're going to have is a Satanist or a humanist try to be appointed a chaplain in a school and get rejected. And then maybe you could file the lawsuit. They have told me they have every intention of doing that. Now, what about Muslims? Because that was brought up too. Guess what? The guy said, in my state, he's from Louisiana, that state senator, he said, our initial bill said they had to be chaplains, but we changed it before it was passed to say certified chaplains. So now Muslims are excluded. That's how we got around that. Well, guess what? There are Muslim organizations right here. Whoops, where did it go? I lost my screen share. Let me try that again. There are Muslim organizations that will do exactly that. Check this out. Yeah. Association of Muslim Chaplains, endorsement, certification. You can get it. What about in the military? We have that too. There's a Muslim chaplain talking about life in the US military. Like, there are Muslim groups who certify chaplains. I'm not saying there are a gazillion of them, but they exist. You cannot exclude them from any of these bills. So here's the thing that boggles my mind here. The National Association of Christian Lawmakers is urging lawmakers to pass these bills in their states without giving any thought to how they are legally sound. They think they'll get away with it because there haven't been any lawsuits yet, but it's early, and because they've convinced themselves their bills are legitimate. And when they talk, they make it very clear they don't know what the law is. And when they're in front of other Christians, the masks come off and they just laugh about how these bills allow Christians in, but keep everyone else out. I asked an attorney with the Freedom from Religion Foundation, what do you think about this clip that I just showed you all? And he told me that if these chaplains think that they're going to get away with this, to cut it short, they will not be able to do so. Okay. Here's what he said. This is Chris Line with FFRF, and I'll just show you this middle paragraph here. The fact that they admit they want to prohibit chaplains who have a scary religion, like members of the Satanic Temple, confirms that they envision chaplains promoting religion to students who do not already share the chaplain's religious beliefs. They say at the bottom here that Christianity is going to be the only game in town. That's what they want. So, like, these people are setting themselves up for the lawsuits. None of these panelists care about getting trained professionals in public schools because they're not interested in helping kids. They don't care about mental health, at least not in a secular way. They're using schools as indoctrination playgrounds, and they believe right-wing legislators and right-wing judges will give them the leeway they need to push their religion and only their religion onto children. I can't believe they said it out loud. I can't believe they promoted it on tape, which is how I got a hold of it. Like, but this is what they're saying to each other behind closed doors. All right. I'm going to take questions here, and I think I'm going to wrap it up after that. My grandchildren are in the Florida and Arkansas school systems. I'm worried. Yeah, and as with all public schools, and it depends on where they're going to school, what state they're in, because there are really good public school districts in very red states. But the policy overall, like the bars are set very low, and the teachers don't always get the support they need. So it depends where they're going, but yeah, it's disturbing when you're in a state where they don't care about education, where they take money out of the public schools and give them to private religious schools, which is, we talked about last week. That's what a lot of them are doing too. Bro, he's literally advising schools to discriminate based on religion. Just wow. I'll tell you what my dream is right now. My dream is there is a lawsuit over this and they use my clip. That would make me very happy. What board or group certifies people's credentials to be a chaplain? It depends on which the group we're talking about. There are formal groups that will give you a certification. Like you have to go through their training, but they get to set the rules on what qualifies because there is no standard that everyone uses. But the amazing thing is in some of these bills that are proposed or passed, they just say, if a group says this guy's a certified chaplain, that counts and the school can take them in. Like the public school can put them on the list. So they're not getting certified by the school. It's getting certified by some outside party where the standards are all over the place. So if I created a religion and I said, hey, give me $5 and I'll call you a certified chaplain, there's nothing stopping that person from being a certified chaplain in the Church of Hemet or something like that. So it doesn't matter because again, these bills, they're not interested in caring about kids. And here's the fear. What's stopping some crazy right-wing megachurch pastor from saying, hey, men, we don't care about the women. Hey, men, come up to me after service is over, and I'm going to get all of you a little certificate that says you are a certified chaplain, and then I want you to go to your local public school district and tell them you're a certified public school chaplain, get on the list, and let's get you in the public schools. If you think that can't happen, what do you think they did when all those pastors were like, I'll sign a vaccine exemption form for you? They don't know their medical history. They don't know what they're doing, but they'll just do it because it gets the outcome they want. And they're like, I'm a religion. I can get away with it. What's stopping them from doing that here? So you don't need any credentials for the purpose of this bill, these types of bills.